Guys, Big Mate Dance here again today, back once again with another episode of Warhammer Thoughty K. And in today's episode, I'll be discussing how you identify in the Warhammer Thoughty K universe, or also in Age of Sigmar.
This video, guys, I want to give a shout out to my wonderful wolf brother Mythos from the channel Philosophies. He was the inspiration for this video when he put a comment on a previous Thoughty K video. Make sure you go check out the channel. Thanks very much and enjoy the video.
Guys, how do you identify, and can you use that to help you pick your army? So I'm going to use a few examples, of course, as I always do. When I was getting back into the hobby, the first thing that got me sort of excited again about the whole Warhammer Thoughty K universe was reading books. So that's not how you read a book, that's how you text. Was reading books. So the books I was reading were the Dawn of War books I read. I liked them. I liked them books, but then I read the Path of the Eldar books. And I was hooked again when I read the Path of the Eldar books, because these characters that I had models for, not these characters that I had models for necessarily, but some of these miniatures were represented within the book. So striking scorpions in particular, which was one of the first things that drew me to the Eldar, were represented in the Path of the Eldar books, and then it went into warlocks, farseers, and then it went into pathfinders, scouts basically for Eldar. What are they actually called? I can't remember. But yeah, basically a few different units were represented. Other units popped up in the book as well. And I really got hooked on Eldar again, the whole idea of Eldar. So I went out and bought a load of models, of course, as you do. But obviously, with how you identify, it's not just about reading a book. For me, it's like, what do you aspire to be as well? How you identify. And I was answering a quiz the other day. I was doing one of them. I think it was on the Pottermore website actually. Yeah, it was choosing which Harry Potter Hogwarts house you'd go into if you answered questions in a certain way. And one of the questions was, how would you like to be remembered when you're gone? And my answer was as wise. So for me, the Eldar, they are the wisest race in the galaxy. You can argue that, but you're wrong if you argue any other race is wiser than the Eldar, I'd say. Because they always look at the long game. You look at the Imperium constantly looking at the short game, whereas Eldar always looking at the long game. A prime example of this is something that happened in the build-up to the Gathering Storm books, and it was Eldrad wanted to bring about the birth of Iniad, the Eldar god of the dead, because the Eldar god of the dead is supposed to be like the saviour of the Eldar race, basically. So yeah, as counterintuitive as it may sound, Iniad, the Eldar god of the dead, is supposed to be the saviour of the Eldar race. He's supposed to bring about the rebirth of the Eldar. And Eldrad wanted to do a ritual in order to bring about his birth, and then basically do that without every Eldar soul, every Eldar in the galaxy dying, which is the way a prophecy was written or was spoken. So basically all the Eldar had to die before Iniad was born. And then bringing about the rebirth of the Eldar. However, Eldrad wanted to bring about the rebirth of Iniad early by not sacrificing the whole Eldar race as well. So he had a plan. I won't go into too much detail in this because it can get a bit long-winded. But basically, he had a plan to do a ritual on a moon. The moon was orbiting an Imperial world, and it's an old Eldar world. An Eldar civilization lived there, but now everything on there is dust. So all the Wraithbone and everything's ground down into dust, like sand, really glassy, clear sand, and he also got the help of the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow, a Harlequin mask. He got a load of farseers from what are called the Dome of Crystal Seers. There's one on each craft world, and their farseers, when they get to a certain age, or over the course of time, basically their skin crystallizes, their flesh crystallizes, and they become statues, basically, and become part of the craft world's Infinity Circuit. But he got the Midnight Sorrow, Mask of the Midnight Sorrow guys to pluck these various farseers from various craft worlds and take them to this moon. And he had a plan to do the ritual. Once the ritual was complete, it'd bring about the rebirth of Iniad. So he was looking at the long game. And another thing was, in order to create a distraction to the Imperial planet that the moon was orbiting, he sent a battle host to attack that world to keep them distracted whilst he got to the moon, so he could perform his ritual. And obviously, a lot of those Eldar lives that go to that planet, they were going to be sacrificed, basically, and add to the sacrifice or this ritual that was happening on the moon that was orbiting the Imperial planet. So he was thinking about the long game, throw away a handful of Eldar lives on this world. When I say a handful, it could be in the thousands, hundreds of thousands maybe. So throw away those Eldar lives in order to bring about the rebirth and the rebirth of the race as a whole, basically, and see them as the dominant force in the galaxy once again. So that was the plan. And the Death Watch, the Xenos-hating Death Watch Space Marines were sent to the planet to help defend it. And Captain Artemis, who you may know, he's got his own miniature, and he's in the new 8th edition index. He's the only named character in the Death Watch Codex, or in the Death Watch rules. So Watch Captain Artemis was on the planet as well. And then he kind of thought at one point, this can't be what the Eldar are attacking. They don't fight like this. He's got some expertise, obviously. He's a Xenos hunting specialist. He's got some expertise in the way the Eldar fight. And he's like, what is their goal here? And then he looks up at the moon and he's like, there's something going on that moon. He shoots off to the moon, and then he goes to confront the Eldar that are performing the ritual on the moon. So there's the Mask of the Midnight Sorrow over there, trying to make sure Eldrad's ritual is completed, and obviously Eldrad's there doing his ritual. And then he takes a Death Watch kill team with him, Artemis, and they go and try and prevent this ritual from happening and kill all the Xenos, which is their main goal. And then he's given a choice by one of the Eldar, and the Eldar guy says to, I think he's the Death Jester, he says to him, you can kill me now, and that will satisfy your desire to kill all Xenos, or you can let us complete this ritual and both of our races will prosper. And Artemis, being the short-sighted Imperial Space Marine Death Watch guy that he is, he shoots the Death Jester, and then he tries to shoot Eldrad. Eldrad has to divert some of his power, so the ritual isn't quite completed. Now it's completed sort of, because it does bring about the slow rebirth of Iniad, if you like, but it's not fully completed. So the short-sighted, what my point is, the short-sighted Imperium guy wants to get satisfaction straight away, whereas the Eldar guy, Eldrad, he's trying to play the long game. So I'd say the Eldar are probably one of the wisest races in the galaxy. They'll do something here that will cause ripples that will go throughout history, and then in 10,000 years it'll make sure something doesn't happen bad for the Eldar, something bad doesn't happen for the Eldar, or something better happens for the Eldar. They've always got advantages. They've got amongst the best seas in the galaxy, so they can always afford to play the long game, where the Imperium and other races don't quite have that advantage. But yeah, that's how I want to be seen when I'm gone, is as wise. So I do connect with the Eldar. Now in 30k, the closest thing to that is the Thousand Suns. When I chose my Thousand Suns army, I did so as if as if I was ignorant to what they would become, because I think it's it's their aim is to gather as much knowledge as possible about other races, about what can help them, and they were kind of blinkered to that. That was the only problem. And then eventually that led to what brought about the raising of Prospero and the Space Wolves attacking them. So they were kind of blinkered to that goal, which was obviously a problem. I don't want to be seen as blinkered when I'm gone, but their desire for knowledge, that's a noble thing. I always want more knowledge, like learn things about different subjects, whether it's like nature documentaries on TV or how something's made, how you put up a shelf, something as simple as that. I want like as much knowledge as possible. If something, if there's something that's done a certain way can be done a better way, I want to learn the better way, or a different way even, because you never know why when doing something differently might come in handy. If you know two ways to do something, you might not be able to do one of them one time, but at least you know the other way, so you can still do that way. So that's all about the thirst for knowledge. So in 30k, the thirst for knowledge and being wise is what led to me picking the Thousand Sons. Now, one of the other factions I was thinking about when I was picking my 30k army was the Imperial Fists. This is mainly because of their Primarch and the way he drives the Legion. You might see him as quite straight-laced and boring. He plays by the rules, he does as he's told, but there's plenty of other Primarchs out there that do as they're told as well, like Russ. But yeah, Rogel Dawn for me is quite a stoic character. He plays by the rules, he gets the job done. They're qualities that I really like. You might see him as a bit boring, but I'd see him as reliable rather than boring. For me, you've got to look at the advantage of what being boring is. He's reliable, he's consistent. So yeah, that was one of the races I was considering when I was playing, when I was first thinking about getting into 30k. However, you may have seen a video I put up yesterday, my Primaris Space Marines that I got in the new 8th edition box set. I can live out that fantasy now, if you like, by painting them as the Imperial Fists. So yeah, there's just a few little examples of how I identify or what I aspire to be to help me pick my faction. And with obviously 8th edition now here, it was launched yesterday when I'm recording this and when this video goes up. With 8th edition now here, if you were thinking about getting a new faction, maybe think about how the army operates, what are the aims of the army and the race in general, or the faction in general, and do you like that cause? Do you want to be part of that cause? For me, I feel choosing an army like that gets me more invested in the hobby than if I just think the models are cool. It may be the models that draw me in initially, but when I learn a little bit more about the army, again going back to information here and gathering of information, when I learn a little bit more about the army, I tend to get more attached to that army. There's a few races out there that I've not learned a lot about them, so I've never really been drawn into that race in particular. So a prime example is Necrons. I've never learned a lot about them. I've listened to a few podcasts recently though where they've spoken about them. I think both the Independent Characters and the Adeptus Terra podcast have spoken about them recently, and about the fluff associated with Necrons in particular. And I've kind of I've got a new respect for them, a new I've got more idea of why they are the way they are now, but still I'm not quite into that fluff, so it doesn't draw me into the army. I don't want to be like the Necrons. So, but where I do want to, be remembered as wise at least, or that's one of the things I'd like to be remembered as. So that's what draws me towards the Eldar and towards the knowledge-seeking factions within the 40k universe. I could be drawn into Mechanicum, but I'd be like a sort of my Archmagos would be probably like a knowledge-seeking character, so it would be frowned upon by part of the Imperium. I'd more likely to be leading my force would be more likely Belisarius Cawl, someone like that, because he's willing to alter STCs and stuff like that to develop the Primaris Space Marines. Yeah, so that's a few thoughts on selecting an army and how you can use how you identify in selecting an army if you do want to pick a new army for 8th edition 40k. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I'll leave it there, and I will see you on the battlefield.